Hey guys, Zaryu here, and today I'm going to be covering my top 3 specs in PvP. I've been getting a lot of DMs, a lot of messages, a lot of people asking in the stream chat, Zar, what is your go-to PvP spec? And I don't really have one. In fact, I'm kind of bouncing between 3 specs right now, and I'm recording this in January, mid-January, so without further ado, let's hop into it. Alright, so here we are in-game. And equipped, I'm going to go over my specs, my gear, my talents, everything. But equipped, I have the Fire Staff and the Ice Gauntlet. And I must admit, Fire Staff, Ice Gauntlet is still my bread and butter, despite all of the other stuff I have been playing. But I'll get into that in a second. The commonalities between these 3 builds. The first commonality is I usually almost always play 300 int with 150 con. I've found this to be a really nice sweet spot for PvP because you get the extra 10% critical damage reduction or 10% resilience, and that really helps for PvP. So I almost always play with a 150 con with my PvP builds. And when I say PvP, I'm specializing in 1v1s, 1vx, outpost rush, and still doing pretty decent in wars. Now in wars, if you're just pure looking for a war build, a lot of the times you'd probably want to go like light armor with like 50 con and just blow up the damage meters. But for dueling 1vx, outpost rush, and just general world PvP, having that 150 con is so nice. So generally I play with 300, 150. Now the only time I'll change this is against bow users in a duel. Sometimes maybe musket as well. I like to go to 200 con for the increase in armor so I don't die to range versus bow. But other than that, I like to play that 300, 150. Now, in terms of my gear, a lot of people have been asking, I want gear updates, I want gear updates. Here is my current, here's my current gear, okay? Void Bent Helm, okay? Not the best, not the worst. It has Resilient and Invigorated. Should you buy Void Bent? Well, if you can get something better, go for it. If you can get something better than Invigorated, go for it. You definitely want Resilient on all of your pieces for PvP, though. So, Resilient Helm, Void Bent, breastplate, you know, and we're doing medium gear, which is going to be heavy helm, heavy chest, medium gloves, light legs, and medium boots. So my gloves, if you guys haven't seen, these things are sick. Empowering Fireball, Resilient, Refreshing Evasion. We'll get into the necessary perks when we get into the weapons. We have Resilient, Petrifying Scream, Intelligence, light leggings. We have the Resilient, Refreshing Pillar of Fire, Intelligence, medium boots. We have the Int Con Health Refreshing Ward Thrust Protection Amulet. And we have the Hardy Keen Awareness Refreshing Evasion Ring. I picked this up the other day for 100k. And then we have an earring with Regen and Refreshing Toast. I just looked over to make sure I was recording this video, which I am, so that's good. We have the Fire Staff with Keen and Enchanted. We have the Void Gauntlet with Keen, Nullifying Oblivion, and Mortal Power, which really I want Nullifying Oblivion on a piece of gear, but it is what it is right now. And we have the Crystalline Curse with the Unending Thought, Enchanted, and Refreshing move on it. So that's what the gear's looking like. For weapon perks, guys, for the Fire Staff, we are definitely wanting Empowering Fireball, for sure. It's just super, super good. And Refreshing Pillar of Fire is great if you're doing wars or outpost rush or anytime there's a group of people. So definitely look for that Refreshing Pillar of Fire. Now for the Void Gauntlet, 100% of the time you want Petrifying Scream and Nullifying Oblivion. Both of those perks are just so good right now. It's ridiculous. And for the Crystalline Curse, or when you're playing the Ice Gauntlet, you want Unending Thaw. Once again, I don't have an optimal setup. My Unending Thaw is on my weapon. Ideally, you'd want an Ice Gauntlet with like Keen and Vicious or Keen and Enchanted and Keenly Empowered, right? But Unending Thaw is actually on my weapon, so if I got a piece of gear with Unending Thaw, I could buy a better Ice Gauntlet. Same thing goes for my Void Gauntlet. If I got Nullifying Oblivion, I could get it on the Void Gauntlet. But let's quickly look at other pieces. Regen Refreshing Toast is probably something that you want. Keen and Hardy is really good combo. Probably something that you want, even with medium gear. Health, there's actually a good amulet perk called Purifying. If you can get Purifying, I'd recommend it. Thrust Protection's pretty good in a Dex focused metagame. And yeah, that's pretty much all my perks. So without further ado, let's kind of look at our weapon combos. So my 3 weapon combos that I go between, my 3 builds, are Fire Staff and Void Gauntlet. Is my first one, and this is very strong in general for 1vx. To be honest, it's really good against multiple like newbier players, so to speak. If you're fighting a couple noobs, it's great to just slay a bunch of people with this build. So what it does really well is you can, you know, kind of run up to people and poke them with the fire staff, but then you can also run up in the Scream Oblivion orb, and you double tap number 3 to explode that orb on top of them, and then you pull out the fire staff and you fireball straight in their face. If someone just eats that, they're pretty much almost just gonna die when you have around 300 int. I am playing the flawed Aquamarine in the Void Gauntlet here. I know people are going to be asking why, so I'll just explain. It's kind of like bugged right now to give you increased damage, so that's why I'm doing it. You can play any of the flawed conversion gems, it'll give you the same effect, but it gives you about 10 or 15% increased damage for whatever reason, so I'm using that until they fix it. And I'm using the Opal and the Fire Staff, and you're probably wondering why not use the flawed gem and the Fire Staff. For whatever reason, it doesn't affect Fireball, and Fireball is such a good ability that you want the gem to affect Fireball, so I'm running with the Opal instead. While we're on the topic of gems, I do have just Onyx and Diamonds in my gear to put me at about more physical damage reduction, 22.9% thrust, and 1.9% elemental resistance. So the second build I'm running, so this is kind of like the first build, right? We're playing the Void Gauntlet, the Fire Staff. It's really good in 1vx, really good slinging noobs. I love it in Outpost Rush. It's a good build. It's one of my go-tos right now. The downside is if somebody throws a gravity well at you and hammer stuns you, there is nothing you can do about that, right? If someone gravity wells you, you're probably going to want to try to burn out, but during the burnout animation, you're going to get hammer stunned and you're going to die. You're probably going to die, right? There's nothing you can really do. So against a good Great Axe Hammer player, you should lose with this build, right? Even in a 1v1. So against really good Great Axe Hammers, it kind of sucks. The second downside is if someone Petrifying Screams you, you don't have that much either, right? It's a 2 to 3 second route. You kind of just have to eat it. The best thing you can do is block with your weapon and then charge a burnout and then get out towards the end of that route. But you're pretty vulnerable. So basically, I like it. It's very offensive and very nice for 1vx, but you're vulnerable, right? You're vulnerable, especially in 1v1s against good bruisers. So, you know, those are the pros and the cons. Now, Fire Staff Ice Gauntlet, probably my other kind of go-to. Actually, before I swap off the Void Gauntlet, let's just take a look at the talents here. I think made a video on this, but just real quick as a refresher, we're playing Scream, or Oblivion, and Orb with these talents selected. I pretty much always play this build. You could swap out Void Caller for Mending Evasion if you want. I don't play any Focus, so both of them are not the greatest. I don't play with Efficient Harvest, but Annihilation Tree has great perks. There is a build with Glimpse of the Void where you can double orb. I don't necessarily like it very much. I've tried it a little bit. The passives from the Annihilation Tree are just too good, so that's what I'm running with. Now, the Fire Staff, I actually have 2 different builds. This is the locked-in build because this is more of like a war-style build or an Outpost Rush. But if you did want to min-max 1v1s or 1vx, what I would do is get Singe and Kindle and drop out First Strike and Arson's Advantage. But in a war situation, First Strike and Arson's Advantage is just nice to have. And then you can, you know, Singe and Wars, you don't really need the light attacks because you're just going to spam AoE. And Kindle is okay, but not anything crazy. So basically, I'll swap out First Strike and Arson's Advantage for Singe and Kindle if I'm more specializing in 1v1s, 1vx, world PvP, stuff like that. And this is more of like a war style build. So we have the Fire Staff, the Void Gauntlet covered. Now let's move on to that Ice Gauntlet. Now there is so this is my second build. I would call it Fire Staff Ice Gauntlet, right? This is the second build I'm running with. Now, you guys might have noticed I have Ice Spike chosen. To be honest, if I want to win a duel against a bruiser, I'm not going to play this build. I'm going to be playing Ice Shower, right? Because Ice Shower is so powerful against melees. I'm going to play Ice Shower and Entombed and Ice Storm. So if I'm going to go to like a war, I'm going to go in with this build right here, right? The build that I currently have equipped. I'm going to go with Ice Spike, Ice Storm, Entombed. The reason I like this build for war is because on a point, you can just throw the Ice Storm and then just throw a spike, and that spike is just going to kill people on the point. It's really, really OP. Even an Outpost Rush, I really, really like this build as well. So this is a really, really nice Ice Gauntlet build. You have a lot of burst. You have the AoE. You still have the defensive of Entombed. The reason I don't play Ice Shower, Ice Storm, and Ice Spike, how a lot of other people do, is because I love the defensiveness Entombed gives me. If I get Petrifying Screamed, I can Entomb. If I get Gravity Welled into a stun, I can Entomb, right? If I get Ice Showered by another mage, I can Entomb. Without Entomb, you basically die in all three of those situations. With Entomb, you don't. That's why I like it for PvP, and you already have so much of offensive with Ice Spike, Ice Storm, and the Fire Staff. Now, if I'm going try-hard 1v1s, guys, I'm going to do this build here. And this is like against a bruiser. Like if I was in a duel tournament against a bruiser, I would be running this. So this is a little bit different than the other build. This is the build I've shown on stream in the past. You can play Blocking Stamina or Quick Frost. Doesn't really matter. I don't use Block too much, and I also don't use Quick Frost too much, so either one there. But yeah, this is basically the build. I have covered this build in other videos, but I think this is like the best build for 1v1s against melee, against bruisers, against just someone running at you. 100% lock in that build, and then you play with the Fire Staff. It's just so good against bruisers. But if you're going to do War, we're going to be locking in the build that I had at the start of the video, where I'm going to, I believe this was it, where I'm going to be more focused on just spiking the point, right? I guess if you wanted to, you could drop this for this too, if you worry about going but yeah, this is kind of like the build for just spiking the point, getting pressure, right? So it kind of depends. Do you want a really good 1v1 against melee, or do you want this build? Now this build is also going to be a little better against ranged, right? Because you don't need that Ice Shower. So if you're dueling like a bow user, and I'm playing Fire Staff Ice Gauntlet, this build is pretty nice because I can actually spike them as well. Now, for the third and final build, I have been liking, and I play this one the least just to be transparent, but I have been liking the Ice Gauntlet Void Gauntlet combo, where I run that same Ice Gauntlet build that I'm talking about here with Ice Spike, Storm, and Entombed. Once again, I do not like playing Shower. I know a lot of other people like Shower. I do not like playing Shower with this build, because if you get showered, if you drop Entomb and go with Shower with this build, if you get Gravity Welled into a stun, you're dead. I don't care how good of a player you are, you're dead. There's no button you can press, right? If you get Ice Stormed or Ice Showered by another mage, you're dead. If you get Petrifying Scream to 2 people on you, you're dead. There is nothing you can press to survive. With Entomb, you have that out, right? Now, the reason I don't play this build as much as my other two is because it lacks mobility, right? It lacks mobility. You don't have any extra mobility from the weapon, which is, you know, kind of not super fun. It does run into mana issues, but if you don't care about using mana pots, you can just slam mana pots. It's a really good build in wars. I have a lot of fun in Outpost Rush. Duels against melee, it's great. Against range, it struggles a little bit, but it's a fun build because you just have so many setups, right? Like, one of my favorite setups for this build is Scream, Orb, Spike. So Scream on someone, double detonate the orb into a spike. And the reason that's cool is because Orb puts Rend on a target. You actually get 2 stacks of Rend, or I guess it's called Disintegrate. But you also get a slowing Orb at the same time, and then that spike is gonna hit super hard into that. And they're still rooted from the Scream, so you just Scream, double detonate the orb into a spike, and you just 100-0 people. It's just so much fun. But suppose, you know, they use it out, or they ice block, or they entomb. What's cool about this build is then you can just throw down the Storm into a heavy, into a spike, right? And I just think it's really cool that you can just keep comboing. So close quarters, like war with a lot of people, this build is awesome. I really, really, really like it. So those are kind of like the top 3 builds that I use and why I use them. And then once again, just maybe I haven't touched on this, I always play Ice Storm, because some people might be thinking, well, why don't you play Ice Shower, Spike, and Entombed? And once again, I don't really like that. The reason being, Ice Storm is such a good ability. In wars and outposts, it's gonna just do so much damage. It's gonna slow everyone. It's just amazing. So I think giving up Ice Storm is just a hard one for me, because it is just one of the best abilities period in the entire game, but also for wars. So yeah, I do give up Ice Shower for the extra defensiveness of Entomb. So yeah, if I'm gonna be running around, guys, in PvP and New World, and you're watching this video, like, what are you playing? I'm almost playing 300, 150 all the time, unless sometimes I'll spec into 200 specifically for specific duels. If you catch me running around, I'll probably be running Fire Staff Void Gauntlet or Fire Staff Ice Gauntlet, and occasionally I'll even swap to the Ice Gauntlet Void Gauntlet. All of them are with medium armor. The perks that I have there are covered, and all of the specs that I have are covered. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and you're kind of all caught up in the current metagame of like how I'm playing, how I would be playing in duels versus certain classes, what builds I'm playing, and the strengths and weaknesses of those builds. If you guys enjoyed the video, give it a big thumbs up. If you guys did not enjoy the video, you can thumbs it down. It's okay too. Talk to me down below in the comments about what kind of videos you guys want to see in the upcoming uploads. And don't forget to subscribe. Peace.